I want to get Ollie on a live stream and just have him walk us through the how this new no property rights like housing system. Like
Right.
where is the house that you're living in coming from? Like I guess maybe he would say, you can own one home but you can't own multiple homes. Well, where am I going to buy that home from? Are people
Who's
going
gonna
to
make the home? Yeah.
Yeah, are people going to build the home? Is the state going to build the home? Like who's like obviously a developer if they can't have private property, like if they can't make money off of building homes, they're not going to build home. Who's going to build
Well,
the
no, because
home? Who the fuck is going
he's
to build these houses?
it's more extreme than that because he made it sound like nobody ever owns their home. He's not even making the personal private property distinction.
Yeah.
He said no one owns the home.
Right. So I don't it's like
But who owns
ridiculous.
it? That doesn't make any sense because this is why this is crazy. He's simultaneously saying no one owns the home, but the government doesn't own the home. So what the fuck does that mean?
Do we live in homes in this? Like where this is crazy. Like what is this? The Matrix?
Right, wait, let me go back a second.
Teams of Venezuelan superheroes called communes. But on the other hand, at least you don't have to pay the other half. And at the end of this, screw you, I don't need your job anymore.
Yeah.
Because they become the protagonists of the comic. Yeah, it sucks if you've already paid half your mortgage and you don't get that money back. But on the other hand, at least you don't have to pay the other half.
So you just keep living in your house, but you don't have to pay your mortgage anymore? Or?
Well, yeah, because he's saying you don't own your house, but you just live in it. Okay,
Like,
how does that work?
Fuck.
So if my neighbor comes and says, "Well, I want to live here now," well, what is the right that I say, "No, this is mine," because it's not mine.
Are guns personal property? I want to know. How do I keep my neighbor out?
But then, yeah, but wait a minute, because then he says the government should own it. That's why this doesn't make any sense.
And at the end of the series, with the property force destroyed, who would the big losers be? Rich landlords, banks who got people into debt, and people who were using property to launder money. The very same villains who've been allied with housing crisis from issue number 1.
What's the laundering money thing that he throws in there? That's so
I don't
weird.
know. Who the fuck knows?
Are you using your home to launder money, Sitch? Please stop
I mean,
doing that.
I mean, I'm sure people use property to launder money, but like, I don't think this is the widespread issue. Like he wanted to have 3 things on that list, and he got the 2, and he's like, I need a third. And he's just kind of like reaching real far or something.
I got to check on something. I'll be right back.
Fan fiction writers like to imagine that the state could take over some of housing market's powers, but that's kind of already been explored in an alternate universe run of the comics set in Russia, which remains pretty controversial even among fans. Although another comic book.
Okay, so far we have you, the private citizen, you don't own your home, and the state doesn't own your home. Okay, so let's see who the fuck owns your home here.
A writer called Hugo Chavez wrote his own spin-off series set in Venezuela, where he used the state to recognize small teams of Venezuelan superheroes called communes and gave them the power to expropriate and administer property. That left the communes.
Okay, wait a minute. So this is interesting. So he's saying you don't, as an individual person, you don't own your property. The federal government doesn't own your property. However, you will be part of a localized government, a commune, that will have full control over your property. So basically, if you think about it, leftist philosophy tube is making the states' rights argument. That's right. He wants states' rights. He wants to just localize all government authority down to as local a level as possible and get rid of the federal government. Wow. Shocking. Shocking.
To do their own thing without the state getting too massive and bureaucratic, but still gave those small teams of superheroes some backup and legal legitimacy when they needed it. It also.
Why? This is such a weird, like, philosophical conception. Why would you trust a random local community of people?
I'm back, by the way.
So when you were gone, we realize Ollie says that you don't own your property. The federal government doesn't own your property. A local commune owns your property. Okay, this is what his argument is. He's saying the states' rights argument. He wants to localize government to this incredibly small scale, and that they're going to control your property. And you know what's so funny about this? He's
What's that?
basically created the exact situation that he's been fighting against. Because what were we arguing about in the beginning of the stream? Where I said, wait a minute, local communities are electing politicians to enact regulations for the kind of community they want to live in, and then that's going to drive up housing prices, right?
Yep.
This is literally the same fucking thing Philosophy Tube is advocating for. He's saying he wants your local community to have full control over your property.
Mm-hmm.
So he's literally creating the more extreme version of the situation we already have, except he's just removing individual private ownership from it.
Wow.
This guy is so fucking stupid.
He is. Hey, our power might go out. It just occurred to me.
Really?
So yeah, I went outside. I keep hearing this like crack, crack, crack outside, and the wind is blowing and making these two power lines touch each other and like spark and like,
Oh my God.
I know, it's crazy. There's people out there though that have noticed it, and I think they're going to call 911 or whatever, but that's probably why we hear so much of the stuff. I don't necessarily know
crazy.
Ollie, how does someone deal with that? Does the property fairy come around and fix that electrical problem?
No, you see, you're going to have your local commune. This is so funny too. Imagine, as we were just talking about, you've ever been to one of these like local community meetings? Like who runs these things? Like the worst people on the fucking planet run these things. Okay. Who wants to be part of it's like the busybody people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he wants these people to basically have control over your house.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You're not going to have private property. Your community, your local community is going to just have full control over your own house. So how is that going to work? Is that like, what if your neighbor doesn't like you? They're going to say, oh, we're just going to take your house away because I don't like you.
Yeah, that's how communists work. That's how communism literally works.
Yeah, that's like this is so fucking dumb. This is so baffling. When you have when you have private property, you're creating a system that has rules that everyone engages in and says, okay, these are the rules of the system, so I can engage in them. But if you don't have private property and you have a community that just controls private property and they can do whatever the fuck they want with it, there are no rules except that you have to please whoever controls your local community. And you know, as anyone who's been in any sort of group situation with this voting, what happens is every individual person, a lone person against the wave making their own vote? Of course not. What happens is every time you have these situations, they split into factions of people, right?
Yeah.
You have some charismatic person on one side vying for power and some charismatic person on the other side vying for power. And they're going to split off into factions that can control their community. And you're going to have to do whatever the fuck they say.
Yeah. No. Tyranny.
This is so stupid. Like,
he's advocating for tyranny.
What if the local community says, you know, I don't want black people to live in my neighborhood.
Oh my God.
And there's only one black person in the local community. He says, wait a minute. I should live here. I bought my house. And they say, no, well, you see, there's 9 white people and 1 black person. So we're going to use our freedom of being a socialist democracy and we're going to vote you out of our community. How's that remedy going to be resolved if the federal government doesn't have control and there's no property rights?
Well, as long as it's democratic, it's fair, right?
Yeah, but that's what's so that's what's so crazy about this is that he's making the argument for incredibly localized, smaller state rights argument. And the whole reason that the left in America is generally more pro-federal rights, it's not because of a philosophy or whatever. It's just because of the history of the civil rights movement and that they had to rely on the federal government to implement all these social policies that the state government wouldn't implement on their own, or these local governments wouldn't implement on their own. And Ollie wants to create that same problem, only worse.
Yeah, no, it's not really very well thought through, but Maybe he's changed his mind. Maybe he's in a different headspace now. We can always
My
hope,
God.
right?
We can always hope.
What do you know what got this guy into communism? What gets people into
I
communism?
have no clue. That's a good point. I don't know.
Do they read? Because like I said, I read that Thomas Sowell book, and the arguments seem very rational, coherent, very logical. I don't know how you read Karl Marx and think that that's like logic. I guess
Well,
if you go into it and you just don't know anything else, then you would read it and think, oh, this makes sense.
I think you have people who are very wired towards this care harm feeling and towards this empathy for the less fortunate.
Yeah.
And so they read Karl Marx, or they read some communist stuff, and it appeals to them on this emotional level. And that's really the gist of it. It's just all this emotional appeal.
Yeah. It's intuition,
Yes.
gut feeling.
Yep.